New underground metal, straight to your face. Let's just jump into it with Anro Demus and Conjuration. That's loud. Alright, so kicking off with some pretty sick music from Indonesia. They call themselves technical death metal, and I hear plenty of that, but also getting more than a twinge of like mathcore as well as some thrash in there. This definitely sounds right up my alley. I think maybe the production could be tweaked like a little bit, but as far as like the little samples I'm hearing, I'm loving the mix of technicality with the just more kind of that when that groove hit, I was definitely already like, yeah, this is some good shit. But moving on, we have Acid Mass with Worship. So some real banger old school thrash metal sounds here. I love the kind of like blackened vibes mixed in there too, both in the sounds and the artwork. Love the speed and aggression of it all. I think the very retro sounding production with all the reverb makes it just awesome. Seems like we got a good mix here of slower, almost doomier elements with the faster balls to the wall stuff, which of course the latter being my personal favorite. This definitely in a year that's been a little bit light on thrash. There have been some like big solid releases, but as far as like sheer quantity, not a ton of it. So it's always nice to get some quality stuff from the underground. But next up we have Carpenter State with Overheated. So some very chuggy, as they put it, DIY metalcore out of St. Petersburg, Russia. And I do enjoy this style sometimes instrumental, like I'm thinking kind of like Mendel, formerly of Aborted, does a lot of solo music like this, and there are other projects like this as well. I will say, I feel like with how straightforward this gent sound is on this album, it feels like it would benefit from some vocals, because it just, I don't know. That you have to write those things differently. Like if you're going to do instrumental, you need those guitars to like really kind of replace the vocal lines and give it a lot of personality and kind of give those lead melodies that normally would be on the singing side of things. So that's my one piece of feedback, but otherwise it sounds pretty rad. So moving right along, we have Vara with Self-Titled. Really digging what I'm hearing from that last song in particular so far. Lots of great groove, those start-stop riffs, that bass part that was just coming in. Lots of elements that make this Swedish band intriguing to me. And on the sludgier side of the spectrum, which is also something I have heard very little of this year besides like the new High on Fire and a few other records. That's a genre I used to listen to quite a bit, but I just feel like it's kind of fallen off. So that would be an interesting change of pace and kind of falling back into stuff I enjoyed, like Alaskan, which I highly recommend checking out if you never have. They are also on Bandcamp. Production, really solid. Not sure I would give any particular feedback on this one. I liked what I was hearing. So, next on, we have Nekrotik Servitor with whatever whatever this is. Sometimes it says in the URL, but no, it's just a hyphen or whatever. So, whatever, we're going to check it out. So some very dark and sometimes doomy black metal out of Tel Aviv, Yafo, Israel. And we're getting to the more kind of our first like more experimental sounding album, I would say. Getting to the weirder stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's definitely intriguing. I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly what I want to say with this one. I like those little synth lines that were starting to come in. The atmosphere seemed interesting. This is definitely one where I feel like I would need to listen to full tracks to like really get a better impression. There was one part that felt a little bit repetitive, so I have some concerns about that. I'm not really into that black metal that kind of just cycles the same riff or whatever over and over again, but it seemed like there's a decent amount of variety as far as jumping from track to track and the pacing and everything. So yeah, if you're in need of some weirder, doomier, kind of even psychedelic sounding black metal, then check out Nekrotik Servitor. Moving along, we have Verminizer with Enthronement of Mars. Okay, this is music that should have that like ear rape warning on it, because man, that's what it is. It reminds me of those memes where they suddenly blast you with the peaking audio, and yeah, lots of tags here too. Grindcore being the primary one, I would say, but also like industrial, blackened grindcore, death thrash, all sorts of stuff going on with this project, and I kind of appreciate those elements, but I will say as a listener, hearing that audio like really peaking to the point that it's like hurting it's like hurting in a bad way, you know, like I feel like you gotta come to a compromise with the production around this. Like, I get that you're going for extreme, but it just at some point makes it unpleasant to listen to. Maybe people disagree with me. By all means, let me know down in the comments if you're one of those people. And I am open to any and all ideas. I don't have to love everything that other people do and vice versa. But let's move on now to Burial Oath with Beyond the Vale of Shadowlands. Alright, so here we've got some much more traditional sounding black metal, kind of in that classic second wave style. Our second one off of Morbid and Miserable Records, too, out of Toledo, Ohio. And I dig what I hear. I mean, I think you're hitting the target you're shooting for. It's, again, just that kind of like classic, no frills, slightly depressive black metal sound that unfortunately, the thing for me is like I've heard this so many times before, but I'm a little bit of a hypocrite too, though, because like there's plenty of metalcore bands, tech death bands and stuff that all sound very similar that I do enjoy. But just me personally, I've found myself kind of grown tired of newer bands doing this kind of like same traditional black metal sound. It's like if I'm in the mood for that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to most of the classics at that point. I'm going to listen to old Dark Throne. Plenty of black metal fans out there, especially in my audience, that I think are going to really enjoy this, but I think that's my one criticism, just as far as, again, the little snippet I was listening to, is that could add a little bit of a touch of personality to make it stand out. And by the way, just a little plug here. I haven't done this in a while, but we do have Metal Trenches shirts with professional artwork. They're actually done by Corey of Zombie Shark, whose art has been featured on here. I've talked about his music before. It is me as Skeletor in bright, like neon colors, sitting on a throne, and you can get them either at metaltrenches.bigcartel, or even on this video, if you look right under the video screen, YouTube's always changing things, so maybe it's there, maybe it's not, but there was like a store kind of like right under where the video is. So yeah, we've got shirts, we got long sleeves, short sleeves, sweaters, we got big flags. If you're interested, feel free. If you wanna be styling like me, feel free to do that, but no obligation. So moving on, we've got a single here from Ultimus in Insomniac. So let's check that out. Yeah, I'm kind of digging that, especially the more like kind of technical aspects of the guitar work there. It felt like there were even maybe some, I'd have to like go back and really pay attention to it, but I felt like there was even some like time signature stuff going on there, but at bare minimum kind of like toying with the riff in a way that wasn't exactly expected. Another very kind of just classic thrash sounding things. Get a little bit of power trip kind of energy in there, and I also love this cover art. And it freaks me out a little bit because I can relate, because I have had sleep paralysis 2 times in my life, and one of them was with the classic Hag that I was laying down and I turned around and they were right in my face, and that was terrifying. I just gave myself goosebumps just thinking about it. So fun stuff with that as well. Let's move along to Goblin Soap with Goblin Offensive. So with the production here, I feel like you've really captured this vibe of, I found like an old cassette on the ground in like the green room of a club that was like kicked under the bench and I pulled it out and it's like from the 80s and it's some old hardcore music. So yeah, interesting energy on this. Lots of also interesting stuff on the Bandcamp page. To the Goblin, you're nothing but a side quest. Goblins against Turfs. In the tags, we got Mysterious Guy Hardcore. So yeah, this is a interesting German project here that, yeah, if you want some like really just classic vibes hardcore, like hardcore almost before it was hardcore, that should appeal to you. It's definitely interesting. I'm like on the fence about exactly how I feel about it, but let's go on to, this is one I threw in because I got a really nice email from Paul, who is with the kind of classic industrial project Controlled Bleeding. And these are from like way back when, like way back in the day. And I'm a huge Skinny Puppy fan, Ministry fan, all that kind of like older industrial stuff is right up my alley. And Paul knew those people and was kind of like a part of that scene. He also has another group called Skin Chamber, and unfortunately Skin Chamber, it's harder to find their music. I did not see it on Bandcamp or Spotify, but you can find quite a bit from Controlled Bleeding. They have a ton of albums. So I just threw on one here to kind of sample, and it was just a really nice email because it's cool to hear somebody from a scene that like meant so much to me. Like that was my gateway to kind of like weirder music early on, I would say. That kind of like broke me out of kind of the norm and the typical mainstream stuff. So to have somebody from that scene come back around and be like, hey, thank you for exposing me to all this cool new music, that was very humbling and just nice. So Controlled Bleeding, I would say, is kind of a weirder, kind of noisier project. And then again, Skin Chamber is a little bit more aggressive and kind of metal. But let me just play a little sample here from their album Headcrack. So yeah, this album, I'd say it's a little doomier, a little... It's got dark and bright points. The darker moments I'd compare more to things like Godflesh and kind of Killing Joke. But then there's also like these synthier kind of moments that remind me of Kevin Key's solo work. So yeah, check them out and yeah, just show appreciation for something from back in the day that just doesn't get talked about enough. Something I wasn't really as familiar with. I think I've had it recommended to me once before, like in the Discord. But again, they have a lot of music that you can check out. And you can find those Skin Chamber albums on YouTube, which is where I've been checking them out. But next up, we have Ametropia with Original Sin. Brutal stuff here from Pennsylvania with some slam elements for sure. I'm also liking this kind of here. I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually a Bosch painting that they just utilized. But in any case, fits the music. Very aggressive. I like the pace changes I'm hearing even in just that little snippet and just the overall aggression of it. Sometimes slam in this more brutal style, I'm not as into it, but I was liking what I was hearing with some of the change-ups, and the vocals weren't like overly annoying, which can sometimes be the case for me. So yeah, this sounds like something worth diving into. Maybe the production could be tweaked a little bit, but other than that, sounds pretty good. Next up, we have Reaktion with Justice Flies. Some really solid 80s sounding thrash out of Barcelona, Spain. A little bit more modern with the production on this one. I also got a kick out of, like, I read that and I was like, oh, Justice Flies, isn't like soars. But then you look at the album art, it's like, oh, literally flies. No, and also listening to the lyrics a little bit, I was like, this feels like a concept album. And sure enough, it is based on The Flies from Jean-Paul Sartre. So interesting. I'm not exactly familiar with that, but I'd be interested in checking that out. Musically, sounded really good. Like, just really solid, aggressive guitar work, and then those kind of more heavy metal influenced vocals sounding overall pretty good. I was a little concerned. I heard a little bit of kind of yarliness in there, so I'd be wary of that checking out the whole thing. But overall, full package, it sounded like this is worth the time. And then we have Indoctrinated Lethargy with Lord's Contender. So some very raw, I guess, death metal, like definitely jumping around in terms of styles here. There's a lot in the tags as well. Black metal, death metal, grindcore, power violence. It feels very kind of like experimental too, and just like kind of how some of these parts are put together. And this is a currently solo project that they're trying to recruit more people for, it looks like, out of my own Portland, Oregon. And also my thanks to the artist Fia, if I'm saying that correctly, because if I'm remembering which project is which, I believe this is the one where they did not have their music on Bandcamp and ended up putting them on. So appreciate that so that I could feature it here. And yeah, definitely always looking out for these kind of like weirder, more oddball projects that sort of stand out from the rest. And this definitely feels like one of those today. It's hard to give feedback to a project like this because I'm not exactly sure like what you're going for in terms of like the songwriting and the production. And so it may be that it's right where it needs to be and all of that is kind of part of the plan. Or it may be that there is room for some improvements on the production side in particular. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'll just be interested to see kind of where you go from here. They have a couple of different things you can check out on their Bandcamp page. So if you want to follow them and their journey as they move forward with all this music. And also I recall they made a pretty big point to label this as kind of like queer metal too. So if you're into that scene in particular, and I know plenty of people that like really gravitate towards that for various different reasons, that's another reason to listen to them. All right, then we have Onsite with Backstabbed, just another single here. So I'm of two minds on this one because overall I'm quite liking it, but it's interesting because I'm also hearing a lot of tropes that normally bother me with a lot of modern metalcore. You got a lot of the octane core stuff in here for sure. Like things that I complained about in that octane core video with kind of the overproduction. I think especially at the beginning, the overproduced kind of even effects, tainted vocals turned me off. But the further we got into the song, the vocal performance is very good, like very strong, very powerful. I think the vocal melodies were strong and feel memorable too. And then the guitar work, it's kind of that like binary, genty kind of stuff with a lot of Architect's influence in there for sure. But I thought it was done pretty effectively. And I like that little interlude kind of surprised me that popped up. So yeah, I'd say like this is right on the line of tipping over the cliff into octane core garbage, but has not fallen into it. And so my biggest feedback to this project is don't do that. Please don't do that. We have enough of that right now. And the bubble's going to burst. Like, frankly, that style just cannot continue to be what it is right now. Like, even the big fans are eventually going to get sick of it and move on to the next big thing. So be careful about overproduction. Really pay attention to actually making memorable riffing. Don't fall back too much on Architects. As much as I like early Architects, that style has been kind of done to death. So yeah, just stay strong, pony boy. Don't become unoriginal. Like, get your own personality in there. But I'm liking what I'm hearing this song. Like, you're clearly a talented band. And then we're going to go on to Mnajdra. I never know how to pronounce it when there's an M and an N next to each other. In the Name of the Goddess. Okay, really liking what I'm hearing from this black metal project. Good mix again of kind of like doomier tracks with the faster, more aggressive stuff. I like the production too. It's like raw just up to that line, but everything's still coming through clear. It doesn't sound like overly like unpleasant to listen to. I like how you're playing with the vocals being a little further back in the mix with the reverb. And I also dig, and if I'm, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we have a female vocalist here. And there's just something about a black metal band with that female vocalist register that I really like. They kind of bring something different to the table in terms of just the quality of the sound and the range and things of that nature. And so I'm intrigued, and I really liked the guitar work. I like the just overall just very menacing sound of it all. So yeah, this is another one that as far as like the black metal projects today, I think this is the one I'm kind of most interested in exploring further. But that'll be plenty, I think, for today. Plenty more to come. My queue is always filling up very fast. In fact, I get too many recommendations at this point that I can't keep up with them. But I thank you all for watching this segment that, you know, is the least popular one, but one that I really enjoy and am passionate about because I just like getting the word out about these smaller bands. You can find more of these videos in the playlist right here. And again, if you want to support me, you can get a shirt, or you can join our Patreon for just like $1 a month, or become a channel member. So lots of different ways to support this segment. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.